Peace, world, on this 28th day of February 2024 on the Gregorian calendar. Just checking in with you tonight, some things that are on my mind. Here in North America, Morocco, however you call it, whatever several state you're in, or on the land and soil jurisdiction as I am, I come to you having made a declaration of expatriation back to my ancestral land, and also knowing that this is a time of great energy and a lot of tension. And right before tension, uh, like a buildup of things. So, part of this is in my response to what's happening with Wendy Williams and what's happening with this being a time of truth. And I think the topic of my speech or my delivery, my presentation is each taking personal responsibility, each taking personal responsibility for the time we're in. I find that a lot of what I see in the media and the news is people critiquing others on what they're supposed to do to make life better right now. So I know that sometimes it's necessary to point out the changes that need to be made and to designate certain people to make changes. And other times it's important to look at yourself. So I look at myself quite regularly. Some people's personalities are the type where they look at themselves like way more than they look at other people. And that's usually a healthy thing to self check because no one can change another person. Of course, we can motivate others to change, possibly, but at the end of the day, someone has to want to change. And the stage that we're in right now, it is individuals changing that's going to make a difference. So I've asked myself, what is my highest and best purpose as far as where I am today and how I can give and what I can do? So here I am, um, coming to you with a perspective that I hope will enlighten someone's way and just share what I'm going through. Um, and I'm also going to share something specific that I've done and speak to it because I have not spoken to it in a public way. And I've kind of followed up with this. I have definitely followed up with this in writing, direct contact, but I haven't followed up with a public announcement that I made. And I just want to cross my T's and dot my I's as I show up for what's going on in the world right now. So here in North America, Wendy Williams, she's been targeted. Um, she is detained from what I see and understand. Her healthcare needs are not culturally competent. All right. Anytime you have a woman who is an heir to the world's largest estate and she's not in contact with her family, we have a problem. And the matter is this is not as exclusive as we would want it to be in North America. There are a lot of us Coppertone sisters who have been targeted in various ways. And with that being said, someone could say, oh, well, it's because you call yourself Black, or because you call yourself a US citizen, or you don't know who you are, or you didn't cross this T, or you didn't dot this I. It's never okay to blame the victim because um, the amount of finance the amount of energy that goes into abusing the women here is magnanimous. As someone who's been targeted, I realized for most of my life, really, when I look back on the things that happened to me earlier in life, I recognize that at least since elementary school, there were things that were targeted toward me as far as testing and maltreatment in healthcare and that sort of thing. And this is something that's documented as to be taking place in several states. New Jersey is one of them. Wendy's from New Jersey too. All right. So there are administrators who have gone on the record to talk about the pipeline of children who are targeted in New Jersey and identified in the school system. I didn't attend school there, but I was born on the shore, birthed. My commercial entity was birthed. And now realizing you can say you're alive all you want to, that doesn't mean it's recognized. And so I think it's necessary to really speak on this whole thing. There are people who are educating us as to who we are and making what seems to be reasonable suggestions on how to show up in commerce and how to show up in the world. But at the same time, I don't see those reports as to what they're doing to reverse and genocided is not healthy. It's a sociopathic behavior. And one of the root elements to sociopathic behavior is not being able to take responsibility for one's own actions. So when someone is financially stepped on, having pain be inflicted upon them, situations of where their health are degraded. Even now, I think about Wendy Williams on the October 31st, 2017. Yes, she said she overheated. I get it, right? She wasn't perspiring. So I found that thing very weird, particularly because I know about the direct energy weapons that are used on people. I have every reason to believe that someone who was dear to me was taken out by direct energy weapon. Yes, they do cause strokes and heart attacks and some more stuff. And it is at birth that people's DNA many times are taken, and there's a claim on anyone who's not come out of it, a claim on the lives, on we're turned into quote unquote property, and there's a claim on our souls. And especially if you've one who's taken the oath of baptism, not recognizing that there's a claim put on your life as you being dead at sea. All right, not recognizing that no one has to hold you up in the air and spank your bottom and make you cry. That is a satanic ritual. And Satan means Hasatan, as in the adversary. So from the time people are born and then birthed into this U.S. culture, there are roots and rituals being put on you. So it's really important to recognize what they are so that we can war against them with righteousness, with our pen, with our minds, with our words, with our deeds. I'm not talking about weapons, although I have no problem with someone having arms to protect themselves, because after all, it is protection against an unreasonable government. So now we have a government where the bankers are supported by the US Department of Treasury and the US Department of Defense, right? So as people are panicking and frantic about what's going to happen, which is not a good thing to be anxious, and I'm saying there's really nothing to worry about for real, but the power of the mind is just that. The power of the mind is real. So I'm saying, instead of saying, well, if the quote unquote Capitan woman would wake up to who she is and the world would be better, it's her fault, she doesn't know what's going on. No, it needs to be each one saying, am I doing all I can do to save the world? Because there was a leader who just came on the other day on Carlton Tucker and talked about, hey, um, we're being antagonized. That's not the word he used, but he gave a scenario and he gave a sequence, a step by step, the efforts that have been made on his part to bring peace. And then that constant antagonization that his country and his people have been under. And I get it, I understand it, because it's unfortunately very much in line with the type of abuse that the women here at the US are experiencing. And the agents of that abuse seem to be the attorneys who have taken oaths to the bar. And it is for finance, right? And then at the end, what's going to happen? Because that bad energy is going to come back around to them. So how I think I'm being used right now is just understanding that we can't blame the system. If we're mature people with courage and with right thinking and with the soul, with a heart, now is a good time to demonstrate that with your thinking, to demonstrate that with your actions, to demonstrate that with your deeds. Because I feel like a certain way is not a good measuring stick for what is correct. It really isn't. And we have the internet, a lot of information that someone would have to search for at one time is right at our fingertips. So if it was important, truly, then you would ask for knowledge and understanding and you would put a little bit of effort into going to get it. So that's a way to measure your own self about, are you who you really say you are? Are you really a lover of good and a lover of the Most High? Are you really understanding and knowing that you are made in the image of the Most High, being a creator and a lover and a doer? Are you compassionate, or are you judging, saying someone brought something on themselves? Or are you working miracles the way the Christ worked the miracles? Right? And that is another point. It might be beneficial to read the multiple stories about the Christ principle rather than relying on one version. Or if it is something that you only want to rely on one version, right, get a deeper understanding of what that version really was, really what it is to walk on water, what it is to be 3 days in the belly of the whale symbolically, what it is to be under the curse of Job, right? What it is when Delilah moves through the 12 houses, or the 12 disciples and plus one, the Christ, the 13th house. Uh, so there cannot be a fear of what is true right now, because I think we're in the brink of something really good, as the heavens are suggesting, or something that would be the end of humanity as we know it. So um, there is weapons, there is technology where things could go either way. And I just want to do my part in asking people to really think about it. So, for instance, in some countries and cultures, there's a lot of respect for those who um, might have religious indoctrinations that are different than the ones that we were indoctrinated into. So many of us, we do not hold the same understanding and knowing about how the universe works that maybe even 3 or 4 generations had. Why? Over here in the U.S., people look like me. I mean, I grew up and being indoctrinated into a Christian denomination, and so in that, part of that was to keep us separate, was to tell us that we had the way and other people don't have the way. All right. And even now, I see that playing out with people coming over and making proclamations about what their religion is, and that the whole world is that religion, and thinking they need to ethnically cleanse another people because they're not the religion that they were told they were born into. But, ladies and gentlemen, nobody was born into any religion. You were born into your body. You were born where the people around you then ushered you into a particular culture, but actually being born um, into a religion, no, you weren't. You have DNA that you were born with. And then, of course, there's epigenetics, where your lifestyle affects, that's okay, the information above epi, above your genetics, the information as far as what you eat and how you think and your environment. And another thing we were born into, um, in the US anyway, is attacks on us as children. Maybe not everyone, but when I hear people's stories and hear reports of the women here at the US and how poorly they're treated in the hospital, not given their babies when they were supposed to, having their umbilical cord cut soon, given the babies being given formula and then not suckling to the mother. So right there, there is an abuse of the relationship, right? And then the lies about the natural cycle and processes and when it's best to do what. And you know that they're lies because when you look back on our generations, on the practices, the culture, and the customs, we've been made to think that the fabricated corporate religions, 501c3 religions, that's corporation, a nonprofit corp, dead corpse corporation, right? That is better than our ancient teachings. We're taught that our ancient teachings are barbaric. So um, I know there are people who teach um, religion. There are people who teach civics, and I'm grateful for what I've learned from so many of them. I hear some judgments sometimes that aren't accurate. And so it's with that that I say to myself, where are my skills best used? And I say to you, in whatever situation you're in, how are your skills best used? Is your energy supporting a system? Like, you know it's wicked, but you're still giving your energy to it, thinking you're doing something good. It's kind of like you're playing tug of war. You feel like you're on the good side, and then someone else is on the bad side, and you're going to pull for good. But really, like, if you drop the rope, then the thing just couldn't happen. Like, no one would be pulling for bad because they would fall back on their behinds. So I just wanted to talk about that because I do recognize that pattern of people blaming the victim. And that's never, ever good, to blame the victim or to make excuses for the corrupt system and say, oh, they're honorable. You have to come into honor with corrupt systems. Like, the dead cannot recognize the living. So, how can you stay in honor when they break their own rules? And to stay in honor amongst the fact that there are 5, 6, 7, 8 different illegal, immoral acts one that might impact them being able to stand honor. But we make our judgments based on things that aren't real. We make our judgments based on things that we think or feel without evidence of it. And that's a very dangerous thing because it creates separation. And then sometimes we don't acknowledge the different factions. Um, I mean, just for instance, I know that there might be one person saying, "Oh, here's the path to freedom," and they make it make sense. There's someone else saying, "Oh, here's the path to freedom. I've done it," you know. But do the people have receipts? What are their motives? I heard someone say today, sometimes people are trying to butter you up or trying to be kind to you. Just, it was a story about an animal, but the moral of the point is they're trying to get close to you just so they can devour you. And as being someone who is indigenous here to the United States of America, Morocco, however you want to call it, to Mary Turtle Island, that many times is the case. And I think sometimes even the people who are told that they're trying to help you, they're given false information on purpose because the best person to be used is someone who does not know they're being used. Okay. And it's almost like that scenario with the Judas goat. Look up Judas goats. There's a good movie that had like a 2-minute clip and explained the Judas goat. The Judas goat might know that they're different from the sheep behind them. However, the Judas goat is just doing their job, and they're doing a good job, and they're pleasing their master. They don't know that they're leading like the sheep behind them to slaughter. So it becomes easy to follow a Judas goat because the Judas goat is very convincing and their intentions probably are not bad, right? A Judas goat is just an animal. So you cannot judge a goat as being evil or good. You can see that the Judas goat is being used for evil, but they're just doing what they were conditioned to do. And so we must recognize that with people too, with people who are leading you and telling you about what is right to do. You want to look at the fruit of whatever it is that they're promoting to be good. Do they have receipts for what it is that they're telling you? Do they have a path that is can be produced over and over? I mean, are they charging you $5,000 to share with you how to be mega, mega rich? Why do they have to charge you $5,000? If they're rich, how come they're not showing you for minimal money, especially if it's something that requires time and effort for you? Okay. Especially Federal Reserve notes that are debt based that make the debt deeper, IRUs, right? Sometimes people are trapped. They're in their own bondage. So they have to put up a facade as if they're teaching you something. Because other than that, they might be punished in a certain way. All right. Or maybe even if it's not punished, they might not be willing to undergo whatever unpleasant result from telling the truth, from telling the truth. You know, some people want to play lukewarm. They want other people to be perfect, but they want to play lukewarm. So I just want to speak to an announcement that I heard today that Janet Yellen was urging the central bank to release funds to Ukraine. That's not okay because um, there's not even been a conversation about the necessity to liquidate the accounts righteously of those who were mislabeled as US citizens. So to be making recommendations that are chaotic, that would cause war on the backs of the original Americans or any other people is unsafe, right? Another thing, until the office holder, the Secretary of State, yes, I do know your name, has the offices running orderly and decently, how is it that one would think it's okay to go tell someone else how to run their country? We have 50 plus countries here, nation of nations at the United States of America, when that are in a situation where people's status needs to be updated. We want to live. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. To be walking around with the bonds on our lives at the same time, multiple attacks on our lives at the same time, secretaries of state at the individual states either play dumb or are ignorant as to their responsibility to switch over the statuses of people from the US citizenship to their natural ancestral status, helping them to repatriate evidence by the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People by the United Nations in 2016. And that's something I'm making up, it's right there. You can read it. All right. But some rather ignore that. We rather ignore the fact that synthetic laced natural drugs are making its way onto the street. We'll ignore the fact that there are programs that are receiving millions of dollars to reduce the crime rate amongst the youth. Now, like I said before, when these things happen, they reflect not on the people, they reflect on the ones who are calling themselves leaders. So as I'm saying, let's look at the legacy we're leaving. And I say, if you're in a position to relieve someone from their pain through speaking up, using your voice to say, hey, set these people free. I've been involved in XYZ program and I know it's unethical, but I didn't know how to approach it. You know, I think that these things can be forgiven because there's repentance there. It's when there's no repentance and when it's unrelenting that behaviors just go on and on and on and on. One has to check themselves and say, am I okay? Am I right? If I did what I do in the broad daylight, would that be acceptable society? If everyone did what I do, if everyone did in secret what I do, would I be living in a safe society? That's a good question to ask oneself. If I snuck in people's home at night and poisoned them and what have you, would I be so these are the type of things. These are the type of things that we want to be asking ourselves right now. We don't want to be blaming somebody else. I'm asking myself, okay, what is my plan for tomorrow? What am I going to do to not only share what I know, right, but to put my business that was made into a chaotic situation in order. And I want to encourage others. I think that's important too. I was at the courthouse today and I was telling somebody who is who helps keep things in order is not as skilled necessarily at cleaning up their own mess, right? Especially when it wasn't a mess that they made. Okay. So, for instance, I might be able to help somebody else um, with their crisis, but I do find it a challenge to be working out of crisis situations that I didn't call to myself, right? So, lies on the county record, uh, people I've never met, like about 2 or 3 court cases that are in my ends legis that I control on the county record. The people I've never met or uh, accused of traveling with no license or whatever it is. It's like I'm going to be in, I'm going to be out. Okay. I don't have a reason to try to get over or anything. But these are lies that are put there. And so, um, and and then I'm not going to say other things too because it just involves someone else's business. But when people who work for different organizations, I guess they consider giving you a chance to learn, or uh, what they're doing is running rituals on you. So it's good to learn, but it's also good to use your words. And if the amount of evil that is festering around the DMV right now was pervasive over the years, then your system couldn't even stand. So it's interesting how one would choose whether or not how they're going to show up as far as being buttery and inviting or spewing their venom across the world. So it really does need to be a moratorium on the foreclosures again, because the assets are with the people anyway. The mortgages are fraudulent per the rules. It's written in law, right? And particularly, we know that this is post doctrine of discovery. So um, these things that are happening, people losing their homes and that sort of thing, um, is based on a delusion, an illusion, and a delusion. And So I'm back just for a couple more minutes. Little technical difficulties over here. But the point I'm saying is that each one must take responsibility first to correct themselves and ask themselves, am I missing out on an opportunity to be my best self? Am I missing out on an opportunity to be more compassionate for one's own self and for others? And I'm missing out on an opportunity to help someone. And I'm missing out on an opportunity to lower the debt, the national debt, by exercising my right to put in a 8WB and a Form 56, letting people know you're not your name, right? Starting a business that is in line with what is right, or do your job that promotes war and the escheat of people's natural rights. Who are you really? You know, do you say one thing to one person and it's something to somebody else? Are you being used? So, someone who's targeted, I know that these are sensitive questions, but they're questions that only you can answer. Are you doing your best? Are you saying what's needed to be said? For me, I need to follow up on the in Maryland. All right, they're working fraudulently. And at the end of the day, um, I know it's something that takes help and consideration to do right. But in commerce, we can't go around calling ourselves stock. It's dangerous. I've made a public declaration, but obviously I'm not all the way out of the system. And I'm not fully able to stand and help the way it is. And why is it just me? I'm not the only one who knows this. So, other people who know this, what are you saying? Are you just saying, oh, the women need to wake up? Or are you doing what needs to be done? And masculine energy is to enforce the rules of the feminine energy. The feminine is to make the rules, the masculine is to enforce the rules. So, a man who's not doing that for whatever reasons, whatever oaths, whatever it is, just know you're being kept out of your true nature for some reason, and in some way. And everyone's situation is different, so I don't judge. But it is important to recognize where you are. Are you being maltreated? Are you being abused? Are you being held to some fraudulent standard while you can't be your best self to protect and enforce the rules of the women on the land? All right. So, and that's part of the situation with Wendy, because um, her son, he just doesn't know. He doesn't know civics. He doesn't know law. But out of all the people here in North America, all the brothers who I know do, I wonder how many have reached out to him to say, brother, here's civics, here's the law. Or are you sitting back saying these people, oh, they don't know. If they knew the law, they wouldn't be in that situation. But are you teaching? Are you teaching regularly and in a way that's not offensive or that's off putting? So, wanting to do, or what I'm going to do to help, but it's also to help people think, um, without a whole bunch of defense mechanisms going on. When we know better, we do better. That's just how it is. And another thing that I just want to speak on briefly is our religious constructs, that someone deserves something, and so that's that. You don't even know what's going on. So you want to defer judgment, defer judgment. And this was, I was supposed to speak about this anniversary of the Great Disappointment from 1844. And yes, this is like, what is the math on that? Give me a second here. 2024, 1844. Boom, boom. What is that? 180 years. 1 plus 8 is 9. Oh, also, isn't it the 90th anniversary of the Federal Reserve? Well, in 1844, um, it was 1 year. Well, so 1844 was more than 1 year of people thinking that um, the man who's um, in the literature of the King James Version of the Heliobibliothek referred to as Jesus the Christ. Well, there was no J historically, so that wasn't his name. But and of course, the story is much deeper than what is explained in um, modern day denominations. It's a beautiful story. It's ancient. It's ancient, 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 way older than the King James Version of the Bible. But in that literature, it was told to the people that a flesh and blood man was going to come out of the sky and receive them unto himself, and they would be saved based on the blood that he shed. So 1843 was the original time that they were given, and then it didn't happen, and then the disappointment came again in 1844. And what really hurt me about that is when I learned about all the people who actually were institutionalized for mental health breakdowns or suicide attempts, and the ones that um, there were some that actually did take their own lives. That hurt me. Now, I always, when I heard about this, 1844 October, I always wondered, well, if Jesus Christ is going to come back, then why would you need to sell your home? Because what were you going to do with the proceeds from selling your home? You weren't going to take them with you. So why would you sell your home just because he's coming back? Now, I get it. You want to make your home clean and orderly so you have all your affairs in order just for principle, because the Most High is one of order. That makes sense to me, but it never made sense as to why you would sell something when you can't take it with you either. You can't take anything. You can't take the house with you. You can't take the gold or silver that you got with you or anything. So when I was studying history and I saw the dates as to what was happening, and it came to my knowledge and understanding that the states, the corporate states that people pay taxes to nowadays, that those states exist only because they took the um, property assets through various means. And one of the means was telling people that it was righteous to sell their property, to sell their assets. So then the church could control the assets. To this day, between the church and the crown and the bankers, that's who holds your assets unless you hold it in a loyal title. And very few people hold their property in a loyal title. And that's something that I'm working towards myself. I don't have it on the record, although I do claim the reversionary rights in my ancestral estate, including the rights to my own body, and I claim that as well for my mom. I don't have it in the county record in writing, but if anyone is watching this, this is an archivable form. I claim those rights. I don't abandon any of my natural rights, none of my right to safety, none of my right to the pursuit of happiness. With that being said, it's part of my responsibility to inform others that it's not righteous to pay taxes to Caesar, and you know that Caesar is not feeding the people. You know that the monies that go to Caesar is being used to wage war and to annihilate cultures on the other side, no matter what religion they are. That's not right. So it's not righteous on my part to stand and see that people are walking a road that is not based in truth and then not say anything. So I'll speak every day that I'm alive. I'll speak, and I will do, and hopefully come upon the right combination of how I'm supposed to help the world be better. All right. So, peace. Take time to pray and meditate. Recognize the air coming in your nose and into your lungs. Breathe in deep and know that the only thing that's real is the now. This is the past. It's gone. Living in that will bring on depression. And the future is the future. It's not here yet. We can plan for it right now. But to be a fortune teller or have your essence in your mind, be thinking about the future as if you can predict it, that's not healthy, that's anxiety. All right, so the power of now is real. That's the moment that we live in. It's right now. And so, do we have accurate thinking right now? Do we take care of ourselves right now? Do we breathe in deep? You know, there are breatharians out there. That's a real thing. The more you eat healthy, the less you need to eat. So, these are things some people are preparing for, right? Preparing their bodies for going back to the time where you didn't need to eat food to make it. Like I said, there's some people who eat very, very little now, and they're very happy people. In fact, only 20% of the energy that we take in is through food anyway. So breathing is important. It sets the tone, the Holy Spirit, the frequency, the energy, the vibration. And if we did not have the Holy Spirit, that breath in us, then we wouldn't be here in this realm in this way. So it's very important to breathe properly and to calm down your central nervous system and to think what is good and what is sustainable. And if everyone did what I did, would the world be sustainable? Because that's the place that we're in now. Some people are on in patterns that are not sustainable. I mean, I'm going back again to the sheet of land and this sheet of personal property through the foreclosure process. It's a big deal around these lands called Prince George's County. And I've said before, the county might want to be changed to People's Good County. And maybe we could have a shift from this sheet of assets, the stolen cars, the no police reports, the drugs for people who think they're just getting a little bit of marijuana, right? The targeting of even professionals, the sacrificing of people who are supposed to be um, the brothers, right? And I don't want my loved ones sacrificed. I don't want the people sacrificed. I don't want the elite sacrificed. I just want life. I want peace. I want order. And it's going to take individual people, not systems. No, individual people, because the wickedness can only stand when we turn a blind eye to it and think that there's nothing we can do. To think if there's not something that people need to know, you can't pick up the phone and say it to the news, to the media, or whoever. They're watching everything anyway. I don't agree to be connected up to anybody's AI. They already have these operations going on. So basically, I'm saying cease and desist. It's sad to see people mechanized walking around with their cell phone camera turned toward people, that increases your risk of cancer. Y'all do know that, right? Or maybe you don't, because who would be so stupid to do that? Or even our FBI agents who are in management positions accepting bonuses for initiating this wicked surveillance in people's homes, violating their privacy. These are people, you can call them US citizens, you can pretend like they're dead, but if they're walking, talking, breathing, and someone's gaining off of their energy, they're not dead. See, part of this delusional game people play to cheat and take advantage of people's rights. But I do believe, and I believe things are getting better. I know that the energy in the heavens is a healing energy. All the eclipses, all those Schumann resonance changes, and the DNA being reignited and going into the Aquarian age and coming out of the Piscean age of darkness. It's an exciting thing. All right. I'm just right now thinking about it and looking forward to another day to have the opportunity to make a change. And I know that there are people who are working for the good. All right. Because today I went to follow up on something. I've been feeling very overwhelmed about multiple matters that need to be handled seemingly all at once. And I made it, took an action for it, and I learned something new. Um, well, two somethings. One is that there's some very corrupt people in the world, but I also learned that there's some good people who are gracious and who are like, okay, we're gonna give a little bit more support, a little bit more time for you to figure this out. Do I like the fact that we have to play these type of games? And I know that nothing was built good or bad. You don't build it by playing games, not being able to say what needs to be said and that sort of thing. That's a game. It's a chess game. And imagine that, like a man and a woman meet and they say, okay, I'm going to treat you like an opponent. And then you don't connect, you're not intimate, you just treat each other like an opponent. See, that's not how things are created. That's how things are destroyed. That's chaos. And that's not the energy that's going to repair the people or the nations or a republic or anything. So I know we're going to shift out of that, and I look forward to shifting out of that. And I say to you, good night.